my dears, I definitely did not 150% forget that I started a social skills series on my channel. That would be absurd of me, as a person with memory loss, to completely forget about such a crucial series and then be editing my channel and then go, huh, what's that playlist for? And then go, oh shoot, and quickly add a video to my spreadsheet list. That would be so unlike me. Also, this is not the same shirt I wore in the last video. I don't know what you're talking about. But anyway, today we're going to talk about being condescending, something that autistic people frequently do by accident and with no intention. And yeah, myself included. I worked at a summer camp for a while, and they would have all of the staff write evaluations about the younger staff, and I think that's in theory fine, until you realize power dynamics and the whole who's in the in crowd of the staff situation. But anyway, 2 years running, my evaluations constantly accused me of being condescending, and all the times that they said to me doing so were the times that I was asked a question and answered it, and fully thought that they were interested in what I had to say. Oops. Now, before we get into that, audio description for my blind and low vision friends, or anybody else who needs it. I am a white person in my early 20s with brownish, blondish, curly hair. I am currently wearing a masculine-looking button-up shirt that has leaves on it, and I'm sitting in front of a shelf of books, and there are photos on the wall behind me. Great. Now, the first thing to note before we do anything here is that you don't have to change yourself for other people. Your communication style is not wrong or defective, it's just different. You don't need to fix yourself in order to fit in or be liked. The only reason that I create the series is because I know that there were many times that I was told that I was condescending and had no boundaries or anything else like that, and I knew that I didn't want to be perceived that way, and that it was affecting my relationships, and I didn't like that version of myself, and it just made me feel gross, and I wanted to learn how to not do that. But then people don't teach you unless it's geared towards a first grader, which is not helpful for nuanced adult situations. So I did way too much research. I made a nice little guide for myself that, looking back, there's so much shame in that thing. It's bad. And I'm sharing it with you so you can try some new things, see how they fit, see what you like, see what makes you feel better about yourself, and then shake off the things that feel unnatural to you. This is only so that you can have some extra tools in your toolkit so you can decide which way you want to turn. Explained by somebody who has no idea what the heck that they're doing. It's also a way for us to explore the differences between allistic and autistic communication so that our neurotypical ally friends, hello, thanks for watching, can understand us better too and improve communication across the board. And for what it's worth, autism is a social construct. Most ADHD people and traumatized people and other neurodivergent people use this kind of communication style too, but I also don't want to say neurodivergence is a monolithic experience, so we're just using autistic, though that's also not a monolithic experience, but also I don't believe that any of these things exist. We're moving on. We're just moving on. It's also important to mention that the harder you work at communicating, the more people are going to expect from you, and therefore the less willing they are to compromise in communication with you. Huzzah! So if you feel like changing one thing is going to suddenly fix all of your problems, you're going to keep changing things about yourself until you're not you anymore, and you're going to be kind of sad. And also social standards in general are higher for somebody who doesn't fit into the group, meaning that if you do fit in, people are going to relax social rules in comparison to how they might expect an outcast to behave. And therefore, the rules are genuinely stricter for the weird people. So now that we have all of that knowledge in our brains, let us discuss condescendingness. Condescension. That seems more like a word. Let's start by defining the word that I clearly know how to use. Basically, condescension is acting like you are better than other people, or having other people perceive you in such a way that makes them think that you think that even if you don't. Behaviors include over-explaining things, offering unsolicited advice, not taking turns in conversation or talking over people, acting as if you know everything and are not open to new ideas, not being open to feedback, stating things in a, well, duh, how could you not have known that tone of voice, and talking a lot about yourself. And when it's intentional, it's usually intended to make people feel bad about not knowing or having something, which it usually does, because everybody is really insecure. Now, this is where I would go, why do people perceive us this way? But I think that by listing all the behaviors, probably clued you in a little bit. We're going to break down each one and look at it from a lens, a different lens of understanding. Do I know how to fix any of these? For lack of a better word, not really. Maybe a handful of them, but I can for sure notice when somebody makes that, that made me feel gross kind of face, and then I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean it that way if you took it that way, and explain myself. So that self-awareness does help a lot. Honestly, people kind of find it cute and quirky, though I very much hate both of those words. So let's move on. First thing is over-explaining things, which I do on this channel all the time. There are a few reasons for this. One, we may think that they are genuinely interested in listening to us info dump when they're just being polite and actually want to run in the other direction. Still pretty bad at spotting this, but when I think somebody's genuinely interested, I'll just happily monologue about cool things because that's how I connect with other people. It's how autistic people typically connect to other people. Autistic to autistic communication is literally just, I info dump, you info dump, back and forth for hours. And if you're neurotypical in this situation, trust that we probably have no idea that you feel weird because that's normal for us. Another reason is that over-explaining is typically a trauma response to constantly being ridiculed and punished for being misinterpreted. We are very used to not being listened to not being understood, and getting in trouble for people misunderstanding what we mean or how we said the thing that we meant. So instead, we think that if we explain it extra, if we give absolutely too much information, maybe they'll understand us and then we won't get hated or in trouble or whatever. It's almost physically painful to be misunderstood because we never know who's going to yell at us or tease us about it later. And it leaves a very terrible sinking feeling in our souls, and it's really horrid. So that's where that comes from. When it comes to taking turns in conversation or talking over people, interruption is very common and a very welcome part of autistic communication. Because A, if we didn't interrupt each other, we would monologue forever without interruption, and B, when we get a thought, it has a very short shelf life, so we gotta throw it in really quickly. It's also hard for us to see natural lulls in conversation in order to know when to jump in, or our executive dysfunction and anxiety means that when the lull comes and we're ready to speak, we completely freeze up and can't make ourselves say a thing, but then we don't want to be silenced forever because obviously that really sucks. So by default, we interrupt because we're on a delay. And this also goes the other way. We often don't know when it's time to stop speaking, when it's time to make room for the other person to speak. And honestly, that's probably because time passes for us really weirdly. So if we talk about our special interest, it will feel like it's like 5 seconds when it's really been 5 minutes, and you saying 4 sentences will feel like 5 minutes for us because it's really hard to focus on auditory processing when it's only been 5 seconds. Another one in this vein is talking a lot about yourself. Autistic people tend to show empathy and understanding by relating what you say to something that we have experienced. For us, that is how we say, I hear your story, here's something similar that I went through. See, we are similar, we have similar experiences. When to neurotypicals, it feels like we're completely ignoring your story and just using it as an excuse to tell ours, according to other people that have told me these things. This is the most common misunderstanding between communication types that I personally see. Like, we try to show our empathy in our way and the other person just feels attacked and insulted, and then we don't understand why they're mad at us, and so then we panic. And it's a whole adventure that I think we've all been through. This also ties into offering unsolicited advice. This is seen as very rude because sometimes people don't want your opinions on things, even when they're ranting about the thing to you, so it seems like they want your opinion. I learned this one a couple years ago, that sometimes people just want you to listen to them rant and they don't want solutions. So now I always ask if they want my opinion and advice or if they just want me to listen before I say anything, and it served me really, really well. In general, when it comes to giving criticism, there are 4 things to remember. 1, don't give it without permission. 2, don't give it if you don't have a solution or proposed help. Just saying that it's bad and then walking away is rude. 3, this is 6 in sign language. This is 3. There we go. Sandwich the criticisms between compliments so it hurts less. And 4, criticize the action, not the person doing it. And yes, you may calmly say honest and objective truths, and people will think that you're complaining or being mean, and it's really frustrating. Welcome to autism. We have fun here. Another common thing in perceived condescension is acting as if you know everything and not being open to new ideas or feedback. This often has to do with the fact that autistic people pretty much, by definition, have a hard time being flexible. Change is very difficult for us because the world is a lot, especially when change has to do with thoughts. So if you challenge our thoughts or our beliefs, we're not going to handle it very well and probably just act like we don't care or we don't want to hear it. And then it may settle and we might totally agree with you a couple hours later. This is also partially the fault of my old friend rejection sensitivity dysphoria, aka I show you a thing that I learned how to do. I'm really excited about it. Somebody kindly goes, actually, if you change this one little thing, it's going to be easier. And my brain informs me that I am an utter failure and I cannot get everything right and that I'm a burden and my day, week, and life is ruined now. It's so delightful. I love it. And that keeps our fight and flight always ready to come out and attack anybody who makes us feel this way. So, sorry. And acting like you know everything, that's mostly just tone. We have a tendency to say things in a very straightforward manner. which means that to other people, it sounds like we think that we are smarter than them or better than them, or that the thing that we said was really easy and obvious and they're just too unintelligent to know it. That's usually not how it's intended. Tone and affect, aka how it sounds when you say things and how your face looks like when you say things, are very different in autistic people. Hannah Gadsby did a whole little thing about it when she was on Stephen Colbert, which I included in my social skills video. I don't have a lot of advice on how to fix tone just yet. Maybe I will sometime, but I just kind of copy other people's tone. At least you're aware of it now? Great. One more important thing to say before I end this video is that all of this is not to say that autistic people cannot intentionally be rude or condescending, because I assure you that we can, and it can be quite fun, in fact. But a lot of times when we do it on purpose, it's really, really obvious that we're doing it on purpose. So either way, when in doubt, communicate. Ask for clarification. Some check-in phrases that work really well are, wait, did that hurt your feelings? Because I didn't mean to come across that way. Or, did you mean that to be mean? Or was just that how you used tone? And then just kind of laugh it off and move on. Because mix-ups, well, they happen to the best of us. So, I wish you luck in your future social endeavors. I hope that you learned something today. If you have any specific social skills topics you would like me to cover in the next video in the series, which I will really try to remember exists, please let me know in the comments. I have absolutely nothing lined up and I have no idea what I'm doing. As always, thank you for listening. Thanks for learning. Remember, it's never too late to start over. Please subscribe if you enjoyed whatever chaos this was, and I look forward to seeing you, my dear, in the next one.